Hi everyone. So unfortunately I haven't gotten around to making a new updated Marauder guide and some other guides for Demon Hunters that I wanted to get out before Season 26 launch, but I think I can give you a bit of an overview at least for the Demon Hunter players. I expect Demon Hunters are going to be quite popular next season, both because they are very strong, especially in echoing nightmares. They're going to be by far the best, and they're also going to be useful in the group meta as a ZDH and as a Marauder DPS. So good times ahead for Demon Hunters, and I want to give a bit of a pointer of what are gonna be the best builds. I do have old guides for all the builds, for Marauder, for God Demon Hunter, and also Multishot, for example. And the Shadows Impale that got a rework in Season 25. So I will link all these guides in the description, both the written and the video versions. And I also have all the defeat planner setups also there in those guides that you can go check out. Let's start off with the strongest build, the Marauder Demon Hunter. This one has two variations, multi-shot and cluster arrow, and very often people ask me which one should I play, what is better. The answer is yes. So both of them are pretty much the same, and it mostly comes down to your preference, your gear, and also how well you can master the playstyle. Multi-shot is definitely the more difficult to play one because it needs more strategic thinking, more strategic placement of your turrets. So this might be more difficult for most people, and Cluster Arrow is a much more simple version of the build in my opinion. In groups, when you're doing high GRs in 4-man and you have a Z-Buff grouping up enemies for you with Ground Stomp and these kind of things, Cluster Arrow is definitely better because it actually has just more damage output. In solo play and in like regular farming and stuff, this evens out, but when you have this like very condensed small pulls, then Cluster Arrow wins. There are a lot of different variations here, so I recommend you to take a look at the planners if you want. So there's multiple push and speed versions. Most importantly, the changes are that you either run a focus and restraint and squirt setup, or you run an endless walk and convention setup. And other than this, you build them pretty much the same. So you have the Marauder set, you have the Yanks, you have the Crimson, you have the Bombardiers, and the Rounds of Clarity. So these are pretty much always included. And then there's like a few moving pieces that are swapped out for these setups. I wouldn't really recommend trying to farm T16 or bounties with a Marauder Demon Hunter. For this, you have God Demon Hunter or you have Unhurled Essence Multishot. Unhurled Essence is way weaker than Marauder Multishot, but for T16 this doesn't really matter, and it has better resource management and doesn't require you to set up sentries, so you can just go and blast. This is what makes it so good in these lower difficulties. Next up, we have the God DH. So this is an all-time favorite ever since it was introduced, I guess. And it is gonna be quite good again for farming. In general, Demon Hunter has a bunch of really good builds, as I had mentioned. And God Demon Hunter is most likely gonna be the choice for most people for the lower end speed content. Marauder's Demon Hunter is actually competitive with this. I would say that they are roughly equal in terms of the XP per hour you can gain. Marauders is a bit slower, so you're aiming for something like 2.5 to 3 minute runs on Marauder, but on a higher tier than God Demon Hunter, that goes for 90 to 120 seconds. So here, for example, I have a Paragon 1500 DH, not super optimized, and I can do 107s in like around 2 minutes or faster. And as a Marauder Demon Hunter, the equivalent would be maybe something like 110 up to 112 in a bit slower time. So this kind of evens out. Here's also me farming on the Impale Demon Hunter. So this is roughly similar times, roughly similar tiers. Even with the removal of the soul shards and the loss of the Anguish explosion that made Impale farming incredibly good in Season 25, almost similar to Inner Monk, it is still a formidable farming build. So if you are an Impale lover, then this might be something for you. I also have the defeat banner in the guide here, so there are a lot of different variations. What you need to know here is that for farming, there is gonna be mostly cold versions because you need this extra AoE damage, but especially for pushing, there are both fire and cold builds that actually play very differently. So fire is the higher single target version, cold the AoE version, and there's also both mobile and stationary setups that have a bit of a difference, where here you have this endless walk again, similar to the Marauder. And on the mobile versions, you have squirts and you have a focus and restraint. So it kind of works similar, and here you can just kind of like stutter step around, while on the stationary setups you will be making kind of big pulls around the enemy and kind of just chilling and throwing knives at them. Very similar to how it was done in earlier seasons before the rework. But in general, Impale is looking pretty good as well. If you're going to try pushing with an Impale Demon Hunter, it is going to be quite a bit weaker than Marauders. Similar to God Demon Hunter, which is also pretty good in farming. It is quite competitive, but not so much in pushing if you're aiming for the overall Demon Hunter board. There, it only is one build. This is Marauders, and as I mentioned, with the different variations. Lastly, I wanted to highlight the UE multi-shot. As I had mentioned earlier, it is not really very strong, so this is even further behind compared to the other builds, and you definitely have to go way lower in tiers. It's essentially just a faster version of Marauder multi-shot. So this is the same old classic Demon Hunter build that we know and love, and still useful to this day because tier 16 and bounties exist. So with this video, I hope to give you some TLDR version of Demon Hunter in Season 26. Looking really good. You have a bunch of builds to play, especially to farm with, and you have spots in a group meta. So that is actually really a Demon Hunter season. And personally, I'm quite excited. I will also try out the Demon Hunter in Echoing Nightmares in particular. I'll be doing a lot of solo pushes. And if you want to see, I have the old Marauder guide from Season 25 that I spent a lot of time making. And I have also rewritten parts of the Maxroar guide for Marauder in particular, and I also have them all linked down there in the description. And I also made an Echoing Nightmare farming guide that highlights the Marauder Demon Hunter in particular as well. So if you're interested in any of those guides, go check them out. Wish you a good start in Season 26. Hope you liked this video. Subscribe for more Season 26 guides and updates, and I'll see you guys next time.